Hi everyone, it's Rio Cloudsync. In today's video, we're looking at Microsoft Entra TLS Inspection, which is currently in public preview in Microsoft Entra. Now, to access Microsoft Entra, you need to navigate to entra.microsoft.com. You'll need to be either a global administrator or a Microsoft Global Secure Access administrator. Now, first things first, on the left-hand side, where we see the service pane, we want to scroll down to Global Secure Access. Here, you will see the option for TLS Inspection Policies. There will be two options presented to yourself, one being TLS Inspection Policy, second being TLS Inspection Settings. Now, first things first, what is TLS? Well, TLS secures connections between a client, being a client device, and a destination, which could be a destination URL or domain. Now, TLS inspection is predominantly used or provides visibility into encrypted traffic via HTTPS for malware detection, prompt inspection, and destination URLs. Now, how we go about TLS inspection in Global Secure Access is we need to create a certificate. That's the first step. So we need to manage the TLS inspection policy certificate. Here we can press Create Certificate, and it will ask us to give the certificate a name. I'm going to call it Test Certificate. We then need to provide a common name. My common name used to distinguish the certificate. I'm going to call it Test Cert CA. And then, of course, the organization name, which I'm going to call it SPF Demo Tenant. We're now creating a certificate sign-in request, which we're going to use for providing us that certificate authority. Here you can see the certificate has been created. We can see the validity date as well as the expiration date for this test certificate. And we can also see that a certificate sign-in request has now been generated. The second step will now be to sign the CSR with our root certificate, which we would need to create or issue via Microsoft Active Directory Certificate Services or OpenSSL. How we go about that is by pressing Upload Certificate. It will show you the information or the details around the certificate itself. And of course, they will then give you the option to upload the two PEM files, which is needed to sign the certificate. Why are we doing this? Well, we want to be able to or allow Entra to issue what we like to call a intermediary authority, or what we like to call a leaf certificate. This allows both the client and the destination to be encrypted and to speak to one another over secure communications, and then allows us as an administrator to inspect that traffic. So what we have is a workflow from the client to the edge server to destination. That's why we need to upload two PEM certificates. Now, let's say I've done this, as I don't have the necessary domain and certificate services to be able to upload this. But once it's done, you'll get a nice little green tick here to say status completed. At the moment, you can only create one certificate. You can't create multiple certificates. So if you do see that the expiration of the certificate is coming up, at that moment in time, you will have to delete the certificate and, of course, recreate it and sign it again. Moving forward, there will be the ability to create multiple certificates in the fact that you won't ever have a certificate expire because, of course, it will then fail over to the other certificate. Now, once we've done that, we've got a nice green tick here to say status is okay. We can now create a TLS inspection policy. We then want to create the policy and we want to give it a name. I'm going to call this TLS Inspection Policy. We can give it a description if needs be, not mandated, and provide an action. An action will be one of two things. Either inspect the traffic, like I said, inspect it for malware, inspect it for malicious prompts, or even destination URLs. And we can also bypass particular traffic as well. Here we're going to inspect. And what we notice is when I press next, a policy tip appears to say the policy you are creating has an action set to inspect, which we've just selected, With this action, there are 4 categories that will be set to bypass. 1 being education, 2 being finance, governance, health, and medicine. So this is already bypassed by default. Now, if we select next, we then get the option to create the TLS inspection policy. So if I was to create this policy, give it a couple of seconds, you can see that the inspection policy has now been created. Next up, we now need to associate the TLS inspection policy with a security profile, which of course is a consolidation of our content filtering policies and now our TLS inspection policies. So if I select security profiles, you can see I've got no profiles at the moment. I want to create a profile. And a profile is important because not only does it define the priority of what takes precedence, it also gives us the ability and allows us to associate this policy to a conditional access policy, which then allows us to enact user context or user aware policies. So if I select profile name or give it a profile name, I might give this security profile v1. And I'm going to set this to enabled. I'm going to set the priority as 100 by default. Gives us a bit of leeway. And then I'm going to link a policy. Here we then have those options to link it to our content filtering policy, which could of course define whether or not we want to restrict social media, gambling sites, social media, pornographic sites, for example. However, in this particular demo, we're going to link an existing TLS inspection policy, which of course will present itself here, which we've called TLS inspection policy. And then of course we can then define that priority once more. Great thing here is the priority doesn't matter for TLS inspection policies. No matter what you put the priority, TLS always comes first. This will always be looked at before any other policy associated or within this particular profile. So we can press add. We then can press next and create the profile. Once we've done that, we then need to create a conditional access policy to, of course, apply this to given identities in our Entra directory. So here we go to protection and we select conditional access. We want to create a policy and we're going to select new policy. And for assignment type, I'm going to select an individual user, and this individual user is going to be, of course, myself. So I'm going to type in Rio Hindle, select my user profile, select. Of course, I've got options to assign this to particular directory roles, security groups, or even B2B users or external users, in other words. Then next, we're going to select target resources. And for this, we're going to select all internet resources with global secure access. So anything being sent via the Security Service Edge gateway, we're going to apply this policy to. Now, for session controls, we're then going to select that security profile we created earlier, which of course has that TLS inspection policy within, and select, and then enable and create. This will then be applied to myself. Of course, make sure that the the traffic forwarding profile for internet access is enabled, and you've got the relevant license, which will be the Entra Internet Access SKU or Entra Suite SKU. How we go about that is, of course, connect, traffic forwarding, enable internet access, and then, of course, assign it to myself here as well. Now, that's the initial setup. Now, what can we actually do with the TLS inspection policy once it's set up? Well, under under monitor, what we've got here is traffic logs. In traffic logs, we've got an option for transactions. And of course, we can break this down to internet access only transactions. What I want to focus on is this column field here, and I'm going to define this to destination URL now. And also, if I scroll down further, we've got TLS action, TLS policy ID, policy name, and TLS status. And this will, of course, filter all the different telemetry we've got for those TLS actions, let's say. Now, like I said, there are a few limitations around this at the moment. One being that by default, it bypasses education, finance, those type of categories. You're also only allowed to have one active certificate authority. And not only that, if a certificate is, let's say, cryptographically signed or bound to a particular endpoint or client device, such as Microsoft Intune, when it joins a device, it will bind a CA to your device. It doesn't actually work with that at the moment. Moving forward, Microsoft are looking at supporting those capabilities. Now, before we do anything else, you want to make sure that anyone targeted by this policy also has the root certificate bound to their device, or sorry, signed on their device. The way we can check that is through the certificate pane on your device itself by clicking Trusted Root Certificate Authorities, then Certificates, and just making sure that the certificate is found in this list here. Other than that, this was a quick intro to TLS inspection. Of course, I couldn't officially set it up with, uploading a PEM file and signing that off with my CSR, etc., because I just don't have the environment at this moment in time. But I thought I'd get this video out there just to go through the quick fire steps on how to configure this. There is also a known Microsoft doc, which will take you through everything I've just been through, but I always think it's more beneficial to go through the actual demo than just read off the Microsoft documentation. Thank you very much. Any questions, please let me know.